Good evening, boys and girls. Tonight we're going to talk about many kinds of plants. We are entitling this lesson 1.3 Part A. There's going to be a Part B, and that's going to be next week, and you're going to get more words about plants. But for tonight, we're just going to do 1.3 Part A, many kinds of plants. So go ahead and get your Instagrams ready and your interactive notebooks. The three questions we're looking at tonight for our essential questions are: how can plants be grouped? What are the roles of different plant parts? And how do some flowering plants reproduce? Go ahead and write those essential questions down in your interactive notebook. Please leave room to answer them either underneath or on a different sheet of paper, but go ahead and leave room to answer them somewhere. The first word we're going to look at tonight is pollen. Pollen is the powdery grains in a flower that contain the male reproductive cells. These reproductive cells are necessary for plants to be pollinated, therefore plants can reproduce. So again, go ahead and copy down this definition of pollen. It's powdery grains in a flower that contains male reproductive cells. The next word is stamen. Stamen is the male part that produces pollen in a flower. And if you take a look on our diagram here, this is the part that I have labeled the stamen, which is these parts over here as well. So go ahead and make sure you draw a little diagram of the stamen with the orange tops and the green little areas here. Those are the stamen. And next we come to a pistil. Pistil is the long tube that grows up from the ovary of the flower. Again, this is the pistil here, this part that's entirely green. And the next word we come to is seed. Seed is a structure produced by a plant that contains a tiny, underdeveloped plant and a supply of food for the plant. So if you look at the diagram on the top left-hand corner here, there's kind of the inside of a seed, and then this bottom picture here on the right-hand side is what a seed looks like when it's not opened up. But again, a seed is necessary for the reproduction of plants, and a seed is what is created from all the reproduction purposes and will eventually, hopefully, create a new plant. Our next word is petals. Petals are the colorful, sweet-smelling part of the flower that attracts insects to that flower. Now, the reason we want to attract insects to a flower is because insects is the main way that flowers pollinate. You can pollinate by wind and by other movements, but 90% of the time it's pollination by insects. So that's why we want to have petals that are sweet-smelling and that they attract insects so that all flowers can be pollinated. The ovary is our next word. It's a plant or animal structure in which the egg is developed. Now there are a couple different types of ovaries, and I've showed you a diagram on this slide of each of the ovary. There can be an inferior ovary, which is when the ovary is below the petals, and a superior ovary in which the ovary is more near the petals than underneath it. Now you won't have to know which is inferior and which is superior. I'm just showing you there's two different types of ovaries. But again, it's a plant or animal structure in which the egg is developed. That's the egg portion of our fertilization. And tonight we have answered the three essential questions. How can plants be grouped? Plants can be organized and grouped into two main groups based on whether or not they produce seeds. Number 2, our essential question, what are the roles of different plant parts? We learned somewhat more about the flower tonight than any plant parts. And next week in our other video, we'll learn more about how the plant parts work. But plants have roots, stems, and leaves to help them survive. How do some flowering plants reproduce? That's number 3. Flowers produce seeds that can grow into new plants. And again, we're going to get more into reproduction and the fertilization process next week with our new words. All right, and that is all for tonight, boys and girls. Please be sure to have your completed Instagrams and essential questions with the answers in class tomorrow. Please make sure they are completed and done. And also, it is your responsibility to make sure that your interactive notebook and your Science Instagram folder makes it back into your backpack tonight after you finish. So please make sure you have that in class tomorrow. Your teacher will be checking. Have a good night, everybody, and I'll see everybody next time.